how's it going? It's me, Betty Jean. In today's video, I want to do a video that I haven't done in a while, but I've done many times on my channel in the past. I'm going to talk about what palette I would keep if I could only keep one from each brand. It's been about 1.5 years since I did this last, so I figured it would be fun to do again. Sometimes over time, you know, I incorporate more palettes, sometimes even more brands into my life, and it can be fun to see like what are the top priorities. And then on the flip side, if you want to see it, I can do the reverse again, where if I had to declutter one palette from each brand, what would it be? This one is always the more tough one because in this case, I'm losing everything hypothetically and only getting to keep one. So I have to be really strategic about what I'm keeping from each situation. In most cases, this is a showcase of like my top favorites from each brand, but in certain cases, I did like swap certain things, and I will explain why when that happens. Sometimes it's more of a case of like, oh, well, this is my favorite palette, but this palette is much bigger and gives me more variety. And in this fantasy universe where I only have one palette from this brand, this gives me more options. So I'll get into like those details as we go through the video, but I have 29 different palettes here from 29 different brands. I do have a few more brands than I have palettes to talk about, but I try to talk about brands that I have at least 3 palettes from because I feel like if I only have 1 or 2, it kind of makes it less of a, I don't know, less of a challenge to pick. So I try to make sure there's always at least 3 from every brand. So that is what I'm going to be talking about today. And I would love to hear your picks as well. Think of all the brands that you have eyeshadow palettes from in your collection. And if you could only keep one palette from each brand, what would it be? I would love to know down below. Before we hop into it, I did of course film this look. It should already be on my channel by the time this video goes up. It's from a recent Throwback Thursday video featuring old makeup. And as far as my accessory details, this is an old choker, I think from Shop Sun & Co. This is an old ring from a boutique in New York, and I just got these earrings recently when I visited Montana from a local seller called Pokey Sand Co. So yeah, without further ado, let's just hop in and chat about all of these palettes and what I would keep from each brand if I could only keep one. So I don't really have these in any particular order. I just have 2 stacks in front of me, so I'm just gonna start picking stuff. I guess we can start with a palette that I featured on my eyes today. So from Ace Beauty, this was a tough one. Ordinarily, my gut would tell me to pick the Flair palette because that is probably still my favorite palette from that brand. It was one of my top favorite palettes for years. It has since like not been my favorite anymore because other formulas have come out. And honestly, a palette that I am going to talk about later in this video kind of replaced that palette for me in a way. It has similar vibes and it's a much more updated formula. So because I knew that I was going to be featuring that palette in this roundup, strategically, I wanted to pick a different palette that would fill in more gaps of things that I'm not talking about. You know what I mean? So I ended up going with the Oceanic. I just love this palette. It's so pretty. I did use this to aid in my eye look today. I feel like all these very bright and also moody, like green, blue, teal vibes are just so cool. And this would be a really, really fun one for me to keep around if I could only keep one from Ace Beauty. Next up is Game Beauty, and I actually only own 3 palettes from them at this moment. Some of their palettes they've come out with in the past just haven't been top favorites that have stuck around long term, but their very first palette is still my favorite one they've ever done. This is the Adventure palette. The packaging is super cool. It kind of opens up like this, but then the palette is flipped. The palette itself is like this. But it's still so cool. It's always given me Legend of Zelda vibes. I just think it's so pretty. I love this arrangement of colors. I love these marbled shades. It's just all very fun. So if I could only keep one from Game Beauty, it's gonna be their OG. From Adept Cosmetics, I actually struggled with this one because I didn't really know what my top favorite from Adept was. I was kind of torn between the Flying Fiddles, maybe even the Heather Austin, because I love those grungy, murky vibes. But I ended up going a completely different route because I thought, again, just based on other things that I knew I was picking for this video that were no-brainers, I wanted something that would give me more of a difference and also one that I still love dearly. So I decided to go with the Amy Loves Makeup collab. I feel like this is a lot different compared to some of the other things that I'm choosing for this video. It would fill in a gap really nicely in that way, and it's also just a beautiful palette. I love these cool tones. These shimmers are gorgeous. I love that it's very like soft and playful. It's so so fun. It's like moody and soft and just so pretty. So this is the pick I went with. From Sigma, this is another brand that I only own 3 palettes from, and it was honestly such an easy one to pick of which one I would keep if I could only keep one. I decided to go with the Angela Bright collab. So far we're very collab heavy for this video. It's just so pretty. It's very like moody fall vibes, so pretty. It's got a good balance of like neutrals if I were to feel that vibe, but also these splashes of jewel tone colors. I just think this is beautiful. Angela did such a good job with this color story, and out of the ones that I already own from Sigma, this is the one that I would want to keep the most. From Lunar Beauty, this was a no-brainer. It's the Moon Spell. I love this palette. Even if I didn't use the shadows ever again, I would keep this just for the packaging alone. It looks like a spell book. It is so pretty. Just such an amazing palette. On the inside, it's hard. It's gonna blind you because of this reflective packaging. My Prue shade is almost completely gone, but so beautiful. All these fun murky tones, the witchy theming. It's just such a fun palette. This just brings me a lot of joy. It takes me back to spooky season years back when I was ordering this and playing with lots of fun makeup, and it makes me happy. This one brings me a lot of joy, so this was a no-brainer pick. From Kidos, I also went with my top favorite. It had to be the Flower Punk. I love this palette. It's so cool. I actually haven't played with it in a while, so I want to try to bust it out again soon, but it is so pretty. I just think this is such a fun color story. The bright turquoisey teal shades with these dusty pinks and then these murky chartreuses. It's so good. So cool. I love the shimmers. It's just such a fun, cool palette, and it would be the one I'd have to keep for sure, hands down. Next up, from Beaute Bar, I thought about going in the direction of picking one of their larger palettes, but I just can't imagine life without the Basic Witch. This is my favorite palette in my whole collection. I just absolutely adore this one. It's so pretty and so fun. It's just got the coolest colors. I think it's such a fun kind of bright, playful take on Halloween-y vibes. It's very like witch's cauldron brewing. It's so cool. The formulas are incredible. Absolutely amazing. And I always say, if you missed out on the Moon Spell, I feel like this is kind of a more updated, beefed up version. They're not exact dupes, but similar vibes. And because of that, I debated not doing both of those palettes for this video, but I just can't imagine a world where I didn't have both of these palettes. I love them. I cherish them. It's a must-have. Next up, from Klarity Kosmetics, I actually went with their newest palette. The Cobra palette is just so cool. It's so me. It's so fun. It's murky blues and greens. It's just everything. The very metallic, saturated shimmers are so incredible. I just love this. I've had such a blast playing with this one, and it is by far my favorite one from Klarity, and the one that I feel like I would have to keep if I could only keep one. Next up, from Simply Posh, I wasn't quite sure which to pick. I have 4 from Simply Posh, and they're all beautiful, but I had to go with my gut, and I had to go with Aurora Lights. You are gonna see some similar colors throughout this video, just because I know what I like and I know what I gravitate toward, and this is one of those. This blue, green, purple, pink sort of vibe. So pretty. These shimmers are incredible. I think it is so much fun, and again, not to be a broken record, but if I could only keep one from this brand, this is the one. It's so perfect. It's so pretty and so much fun. Next up, from Melt Cosmetics, I really debated on this one because there were so many directions I could go with various Melt palettes. I thought about going with my top favorite, which is Muerte, but at the end of the day, I can't imagine a world without Gemini. This is like the OG. This is the first palette that I ever owned from Melt Cosmetics. I will cherish this gift forever and ever, and there's just something so special about it. I love these grungy, murky tones. It's just so pretty. One of the best blacks in my whole collection. I feel like you get those rusty, grungy browns and those yummy olives. It's just so good. It's so classic. It's very much like spicy neutrals with a twist. So good and just so iconic, and I can't imagine not having this. Glam and Matrix, this was a really tough one as well. I actually debated featuring their newest palette, Grounded, but I ended up deciding that the Barely Basic was probably the most logical one for this video. It's a little bit larger, has a little bit more variety, and still has those yummy grungy tones that I crave. It's such a pretty one. I love this, like the level of depth. Again, we have those yummy fall tones. We even have these cool tone browns over here if I wanted to go in that route. We have kind of a mixture of these iridescent shimmers and then these more saturated shimmers. It's just such a pretty palette. It is so well done, so well curated, and I feel like for me, such an obvious choice if I can only have one from the brand. Next up from NBA Cosmetics, I've acquired like 4 palettes from that brand this year, and I think my favorite one is Cursed Moon, and the one that I would want to have the most if I could only have one. It's super pretty. I feel like it's such a good just kind of nighttime moonlight casting on the water and in the sky sort of color story. These glowy like golden shades are so cool with these different bluey grays. It's just really fun. It's really enchanting, and I feel like compared to the other ones that I have from this brand, this one just stands out the most, and I feel like would stick out most if I could only keep one, and would like add more to me in my collection if I could only have one. Next is Odins Eye, and I recently did do a full Odins Eye palette ranking, and if you saw that video, you'd know that the Stone and Rock was my favorite, and I debated doing that for this video, but because I have already featured lots of like grungy, murky, green-based shadows, definitely more to come, I figured it would be smarter for me to add a little bit more variety, so I went with my second favorite, which is the Christmas Eve palette. It's just so pretty. I love these different tones. This definitely still has a murky, grungy sort of undertone to it, but with different tones than the Stone and Rock has. And again, we're gonna see lots of grungy tones throughout this video, and I just figured this one would just be the best pick for this situation. And really, I thought about picking my personal collab as well with the brand, but that only has 10 shades, and as much as I love my collab, it's so bright and fun and colorful and would add really good variety compared to what I've already picked. I did factor in size for a lot of my choices here. Next up, back on the topic of murky greens, from Unearthly, the Sorcerer Smoke, I couldn't not pick this. I was looking at all my other palettes, and as much as I love them as well, the Sorcerer Smoke is just the one that I had to pick. It's my favorite from the brand. It's so pretty. I love these tones, this formula. It is absolutely incredible, and I couldn't not pick it. There was no other option. Moving on to Fantasy Cosmetica, and this is a perfect example of, this isn't my top favorite from the brand. It is up there. I do really enjoy this palette, but it's not my #1 favorite. My #1 is the Druid, if you're wondering. I went with size in this case, and I went with their biggest palette, the Harvest of Souls. Honestly, this is a palette I recommend if you've never tried this brand and want to, because I feel like this gives you such good variety of colors. It's just such a cool concept, such a pretty color story. I feel like there's really good variety, and you get a really good feel of what Fantasy Cosmetica is all about with this palette. So I feel like just in this world where I only get one Fantasy Cosmetica palette, picking the biggest one just makes the most sense to me. It's such a pretty one. Next up from Give Me Glow, it just seemed wrong to pick anything other than the Vintage Rose. This has been an OG favorite of mine for such a long time. I adore this palette with my whole heart. It's just incredible. I've loved this for years. I've used this so many times, and I just can't imagine a world where this isn't in my collection. It's just so, so, so pretty. It really stands the test of time for me. It's a really special one. Next up is Artitude Cosmetics, and this was a tough one for me as well. And I debated just going with my favorite, which I believe is their newest one, the Arcana, but then I was like, is that the one that I feel like I would want to use if I could only use one, if I could only keep one? I went with one that actually turned me onto the brand in the first place, and that's the Urban Neutrals. I bought this alongside of the Vintage Neutrals when it launched last year, and it's so pretty. I think it's cool. I feel like it has really fun tones, really interesting shades. I feel like the way these pair together are just super cool and interesting, and I feel like this would be a really good addition to the lineup of palettes I've already talked about if I can only keep one from this brand. But this was a really tough one. I felt like with Artitude, I could have pretty much picked any of the palettes that I own from them and it would have been a good pick no matter what. But I decided to give it to the one that first like really pulled me to buy from the brand. So Urban Neutrals it was. Next up is Clionadh, and this was an obvious easy choice. I went with the Oceano. This is my favorite palette from the brand. It's just incredible. It's so fun. It has these bright, bold splashes, but also murky tones. It's just such a cool roundup. I love this one. Like, there was no better pick for me than this palette. And next is Cosmic Brushes. And this was another one I really debated on. I was like, do I go with something more bright? Do I go with something a little more soft or neutral? Do I go with something that's a completely different direction? Do I pick my favorite palette, which is the Muse? What do I do? And I ended up just trying to really look at what I've already talked about for this video and thought to myself, what would give me the most variety with a void that is still open in this collection? Because I've already talked about a lot of murky, grungy tones, which I'm still not done talking about in this video. So I'm like, do I really need to add another one in this case, with it being the Muse or the Undergrowth or something like that? Or do I go a different direction entirely? And that is what I ultimately ended up deciding. I picked the Wonderland. I just feel like compared to everything I've already talked about, this is the most different. It is so much more just like bright in your face. This is honestly what also made me decide not to pick the Arcana from Artitude. Not to say one is better than the other, because I feel like they're both under that like blue-purple umbrella, but with very different ideas. Like, same word, different font kind of feeling. But I feel like this one just like adds a lot of variety compared to what I've already talked about. It's a palette I know that I love. The multi-chromes are incredible. It fills a void really nicely, and it's still a palette that I absolutely adore. So this is what I ended up picking for Cosmic Brushes. Next, from Lethal Cosmetics. Oh, this was a tough one as well, because I was like, do I go with my favorite, which is the Earth palette? But then that was entering that world again of like grungy greens. It's like, I can't only have grungy green palettes in this fantasy universe. So I went with, I believe this is my second favorite palette, the Spellcraft. I just think this one is super cool. Again, the packaging is just incredible, but it's just very like murky, yummy, but I feel like it's murky in a different way than palettes I've already talked about. I like these kind of silvery, bluey purples. I like the pops of pink. This just seemed like a really good pick in this universe where I can only have one from Lethal. And this is like one of their larger palettes. It's not a large palette by any means, but they do a lot of small palettes. This one gives me a bit more of a shade variety as well. Next up is Dede Signature, and this was a no-brainer. It's the Fearless Holiday. It's my favorite. This is the one that I said kind of replaces, not completely replaces, but it's kind of like almost an updated version of the Flair palette from Ace Beauty. Very similar vibes, and it's just wonderful. One of my top favorite palettes last year. Dede Signature absolutely killed it with this one. I love and adore this so much. I think it is just such a wonderful palette. And this is such an easy no-brainer. If I can only ever have one from this brand, it's this one. I honestly can't imagine a world where anything Dede Signature comes out with going forward is better than this one. I guess the only thing that would make this better, it would be if this beige was a different color. Because I am running the war against beige. Next up is Glam Light, and I only own 3 palettes from them, and I decided in this world I would go with my favorite one. It's the Breaking Dawn Part 2 Team Jacob palette. I just love this. Again, we're not done with the grungy, murky tones, but this one's a little bit more of like a neutrals with a twist rather than like full-on grungy colors, which this does add some variety in that case. There are a little bit more neutral leaning shades, which sprinkled in compared to what I already have, I think is a good addition. But I tried not to overthink this one too much. I was like, either way, I'd probably be happy. I like my Chucky Crazy in Love. I like my Team Edward. I love this one. Like, they were all great, so I went with just the one that's my favorite. From Gourmande Girls, this was a tough one as well. I thought about going with like the Spooked, which I think is my favorite from the brand. Really, any of their Halloween ones are great. Their Christmassy ones, like they've just done such good palettes. So many bangers, time and time again. So in this case, because I just love this brand and I love their formulas, I went for size. So I went with the Calavera palette. This is a Dia de los Muertos palette in tribute to the owner's grandparents, I believe, and it's just so pretty. It's chaotic and colorful and so wonderful. We have a really good range of like very bright, intense shades, softer pastels, darker, deepening shades, really pretty shimmers just kind of lightly scattered throughout. But I feel like this palette would just give me such good variety with just colors in general and from this brand. I figured this was just the most logical pick. Next up is ColourPop, and I have a few. I don't have a giant ColourPop collection, but I have a few to choose from, and the one that I ended up deciding is my Twilight palette. I just had to go with my favorite. I had to do it. It's just so pretty. They've absolutely killed it for me with the Twilight New Moon palette so far. I really hope they continue the series of all the movies. It would just make me so happy. I just love that this looks like it's the teal filter from the first movie. It's so iconic. The formulas are so good in this. I love these kind of softer greens and blues. It's just so pretty. It is so pretty, and I feel like this is just the one that I would have to keep if I could only have one from ColourPop. Next up is Nomad. This was a really tough one as well because I was like, what do I do? Do I go something very off the wall, different than what I've already talked about? Do I stick with one of my favorites? What do I do? And I ultimately went with my favorite. It's the Haunted Europe palette. I just couldn't not. Like, can you imagine a world in which I don't have the Haunted Europe in my possession? It's unthinkable. It's just such a cool palette. They did such a good job with this. I feel like the contrast is so fun. Like, I always call this my pumpkin patch half, and this is my spooky graveyard half. It's just such a cool palette. I can't imagine not having this. And I feel like because of the contrast between both sides of the palette, I feel like you get really good variety. Such a top tier one. Such a perfect palette. Next up is Wicked Widow, and they had some good options for me to choose from as well. Like, they have one that's more of like a rainbow vibe. They have one that's more of like half neutral, half colorful. They have the more black, red sort of color story with the crow, but I ultimately ended up going with my favorite with this brand as well. This is the Tales of Terror, a haunting palette, and it is just gorgeous. So many fun, poppin', traditional Halloween-y shades. I am such a sucker for this. I feel like we have lots of good, bold pops of playful, fun color, but we also have like the murky grunginess. It's just so cool. Such a cool palette. This formula is incredible. I love this. I love this. This was an easy pick. Next up is Jolie Beauty. I want to say like 7 palettes from them at this point, and I had to go with my favorite. This one just stands out to me so much. This is the Spellbound. It's ginormous, but that's good in this case where I'm not gonna have as many shadows to choose from. And it's just beautiful. I love a blue, green, purple color story. I also love that we have these really soft, kind of dusty shades over here. I feel like that adds a really good element. These beautiful shifty shimmers all throughout. This is such a gorgeous palette. I love it. It's playful, it's fun. You can do things that are very dark and edgy, but you can also do things that are a bit lighter and softer. It's very ethereal. It's just such a cool palette. Next up is D'Avrune, and I wasn't sure what to pick for this one either because they have like the Dewdrops palettes, which are just such fun, toppery, iridescent shades, which still debating picking one of those because they would be really cool additions to what I've already talked about. I debated the Smitten Kitten because that's just a really fun kind of like grayscale pink purple sort of vibe, but I couldn't resist picking the Gloomy Gardens. I love these colors. I love the way these all play together. I love the murky meets bright. It's just so cool. These shimmers at the bottom are so pretty. This just seemed like such an obvious pick for me to pick if I could only pick one from this brand. But this was a tough one. That one in particular stumped me because I was like, I don't really know what to pick. Any of these could be a good option, but I mean, I guess I could say that about pretty much all of these brands. A lot of them have just countless palettes that would be good options. And last but not least is Blend Bunny. And this is another example of I did not pick my favorite palette because I just had to go with the obvious choice. I mean, I could have gone my favorite route. I could have gone with like the Lure, the Beauty Below, the Machina, the Surge, like so many great picks. But I figured if I can only have one Blend Bunny palette, I'm picking the biggest one. It's literally the size of a table. This is the Ellis Atlantis collab, and it is just every color you could ever need. And I feel like if I can only have one Blend Bunny palette, this is just such an obvious pick. We have every shade of the rainbow. We have grays and neutrals. We have this row of iridescence, which this is actually what made me not pick one of the Dewdrops palettes from D'Avrune because I knew I would already have these in this palette. Everything from light to dark. We have murky, we have neon, we have pastels. It's just perfect. It's such a good rainbow palette. I don't reach for this very often because it's very much just like an overwhelmingly large palette, but it was done so well. If you only needed one rainbow palette in your life, this is the one to get. And if I can only ever have one Blend Bunny palette in my life, this has to be the one because it has the most shades. That's just the logical explanation in my mind. So yeah, those are all the palettes I would keep if I could only keep one from each brand. And this was very tough, but I think I'm settled on my decision. Thankfully, this is a hypothetical world. I don't need to get rid of all of my other palettes, but I think this would be a pretty good roundup of shades that I would enjoy. Yes, there's definitely similar vibes with a lot of these with the murky, grungy tones, but that is just what I like. But I tried to incorporate as well, you know, good pops of something something with other palettes. I feel like I'd be pretty set. I don't think there are any major gaps to be filled, especially when you also include the Ellis palette because it has every rainbow shade. So even if there were a gap, that probably fills it. But yeah, I would love to hear your thoughts. Do we have similar tastes and mindsets and logic for this hypothetical scenario? What would you keep if you could only keep one from each brand? I would love to know. If you made it to the end of this video, let's stick with the theme. If you could only ever use 10 emojis ever again, which 10 would you pick? And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. It helps my channel out a lot. And if you're not already, you can follow me over on Instagram and TikTok. I'm BATTYBEAN over there. You can also subscribe if you want to see more videos. You're also welcome to hop over to my second channel, linked in my description box if you want additional content. And also in my description box is a link to my channel memberships. There's a couple different tiers with a couple different perks, and I would love to have you. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.